Anonymous messages, hidden secrets, and growing distrust threatened to destroy Jungkook and Jimin's bond forever. The message arrived at 2:17 a.m. If you really trust Jimin, don't open the file attached below. Stared at the glowing screen in the darkness of his apartment. Rain hammered against the windows like impatient fingers. The city lights beyond the glass blurred into streaks of gold and silver. His heartbeat slowed, then quickened. The anonymous sender had no profile picture. No name. No history, just a file, a single file. Jungkook should have deleted it. Instead, he clicked, the screen flickered, a video appeared, and suddenly his blood ran cold. Jimin was standing in a dimly lit room. He was talking to someone, a man whose face couldn't be seen. The audio was distorted, but one sentence emerged clearly from the static. Jungkook can never know the truth. Video ended. Jungkook sat frozen. For several seconds he couldn't breathe. The room felt smaller, colder. A violent thunderclap shook the glass. His phone buzzed again, another message. Ask him where he was 3 months ago. Jungkook clenched his jaw. 3 months ago. The date mentioned in the message immediately brought back a memory. A week, an entire week when Jimin had vanished without explanation. When he returned, exhausted and pale, he refused to discuss where he had been. Jungkook had trusted him without question until now. His reflection stared back from the black screen, confused, afraid. And for the first time in years, doubtful morning arrived wrapped in grey clouds. Jimin stepped into the cafe carrying his usual iced coffee. The familiar smile appeared on his face the moment he saw Jungkook, a smile that normally made every problem disappear. Today it only made Jungkook's stomach tighten. Hey, Jimin said softly. Jungkook forced a smile. Morning. Something shifted immediately. Jimin noticed, he always noticed, the older man sat down across from him. What happened? Nothing. A lie. Jimin knew it, Jungkook knew it. The silence between them stretched. Outside, people rushed beneath umbrellas. Inside, the smell of roasted coffee beans filled the air, yet neither comforted Jungkook. He pulled out his phone, opened the video and slid it across the table. Jimin watched, the color drained from his face. His fingers tightened around the cup. For the first time, genuine fear appeared in his eyes, not confusion. Fear, Jungkook noticed, and that frightened him even more. What is this? Jungkook asked quietly. Jimin looked away. The answer didn't come. Seconds passed, then a minute. Finally Jimin whispered, "Where did you get this?" Jungkook felt something crack inside him. Not answering my question. Jimin closed his eyes, the muscles in his jaw twitched. I can't explain right now. Can't or won't. Jungkook. Was that man? Jimin's silence became an answer of its own. Rain began falling outside once more. The sound echoed against the windows. Jungkook remembered countless nights when they sat together watching storms, laughing, sharing secrets, making promises. Now those memories felt distant, like scenes from another life. I trusted you, Jungkook said. The hurt in his voice made Jimin flinch. I know. Then tell me the truth. Jimin lowered his head and said nothing. Hours later they left separately. Neither noticed the black car parked across the street. Inside sat a man wearing dark gloves. He watched them through tinted windows. A satisfied smile touched his lips. Phase 1 was complete. The seed of doubt had been planted. That night Jungkook couldn't sleep. Every memory seemed contaminated, every smile, every conversation, every moment. Questions multiplied endlessly. Why had Jimin disappeared 3 months ago? Who was the mysterious man? Why was someone sending these messages? And why did it feel as though an invisible hand was carefully pulling them apart? Near midnight his phone vibrated again. Another anonymous message. This time there was a photograph. Jimin, standing beside the same unidentified man. The image was dated exactly 3 months earlier. Jungkook stared at it, his chest tightened painfully. The sender added one final sentence beneath the picture. Person you trust most is hiding the reason your life is in danger. Room fell silent. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Far away, unaware that another photograph had been sent, Jimin stood alone on a rooftop. The wind whipped through his hair, his hands trembled. Not because he was afraid for himself, but because he knew the truth was finally catching up to them. And if it surfaced completely, Jungkook might never look at him the same way again. Jimin closed his eyes. The city lights shimmered below. A painful memory surfaced. A promise he had made months ago. A promise that required lies. A promise that was now destroying everything he had tried to protect. Somewhere in the darkness, hidden from both of them, a man watched multiple surveillance screens, photographs, messages. Videos, carefully crafted deceptions, all part of a plan years in the making. He leaned back in his chair, smiling, because every move had unfolded exactly as expected. Soon Jungkook and Jimin would no longer stand together. And when that happened, neither of them would realize they had been manipulated from the very beginning. The game had already started, and neither knew who was truly controlling the board. The next morning arrived without sunlight. Heavy clouds covered the city, turning the world outside Jungkook's apartment into a landscape of grey shadows and distant rain. He had not slept. The anonymous photograph remained open on his phone. Jimin, the mysterious man, the date, the warning, each detail repeated endlessly inside his mind. By dawn, his eyes burned from exhaustion, yet the questions hurt far more. A sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Jungkook looked toward the door. Another knock followed, slow, deliberate. His heart instantly accelerated. For a brief moment he wondered if the anonymous sender had somehow found him. He approached carefully and opened the door. Jimin stood there, soaked by rain. His dark coat glistened under the hallway light. His expression looked exhausted, as though he hadn't slept either. Neither spoke. The silence stretched between them. Finally Jimin broke it. "We need to talk." Jungkook stepped aside. Jimin entered. The familiar apartment suddenly felt unfamiliar. Countless memories filled the room. Movie nights, late conversations, shared laughter. Now an invisible wall seemed to separate them. Jimin stood near the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. For several seconds he appeared to search for words, then he turned. "What did the messages say?" Jungkook crossed his arms. "You already know about them." "No, I know someone has been trying to reach you." Jungkook's eyes narrowed. "How?" Jimin hesitated, a dangerous hesitation, the kind that suggested hidden truths. "Been expecting this." Answer struck harder than Jungkook expected. "Been expecting this?" Jimin nodded slowly. "Yes." A chill crawled down Jungkook's spine. Every instinct told him he was standing near the edge of something much bigger than he understood. "Then start explaining." Jimin looked away. Rain tapped softly against the windows. His shoulders rose and fell with a deep breath. "When I disappeared 3 months ago." His voice stopped. The memory clearly hurt. Jungkook waited. Finally Jimin continued. "I wasn't running away." "Then where were you?" Jimin's fingers tightened into fists. "I was protecting someone." "Who?" Silence again, the same frustrating silence. Jungkook felt anger flare inside him. "Every answer you give creates 10 more questions." "I know." "Then stop hiding things." Pain flashed across Jimin's face. For a moment he looked genuinely torn, as if revealing the truth carried consequences neither of them could imagine. Then suddenly his phone rang. The sound shattered the tension. Jimin glanced at the screen. The color drained from his face. Immediately Jungkook noticed. "Who is it?" Jimin rejected the call. No answer. The phone rang again, the same number again. And again, relentlessly. Finally Jimin switched off the device entirely. His hands were trembling. Jungkook had never seen him like this before. Fear. Real fear, not for himself, for something else, or someone else. Before Jungkook could ask another question, a loud crash erupted outside. Both men rushed toward the window. A black motorcycle had collided with a parked vehicle below. People began gathering around the scene. Rain continued pouring. At first it appeared to be an ordinary accident. Then Jungkook noticed something. The rider wasn't moving, not because of injury, because he was staring directly upward at their apartment. Even from several floors above, Jungkook felt the intensity of that gaze. The helmet concealed the rider's face, yet the sensation was unmistakable. The man had been watching them. Seconds later the rider stood, mounted the motorcycle, and disappeared into the rain. The crowd erupted in confusion. Several witnesses pointed after him. Jungkook turned toward Jimin. "What was that?" Jimin looked genuinely alarmed. "We have to leave." "What, now?" Urgency in his voice left no room for argument. Within minutes they were inside Jimin's car. Rain battered the windshield. The city blurred past. Neither spoke for several blocks. Finally Jungkook broke the silence. "Tell me what's happening." Jimin tightened his grip on the steering wheel. The muscles in his jaw hardened. Then he said something that changed everything. "Man in the video." Jungkook immediately looked at him. "Is dead." The words hit like a physical blow. "What?" "He died 2 months ago." Jungkook stared. His thoughts collided violently. That couldn't be possible. The video appeared recent. The photograph was dated 3 months ago. Nothing made sense anymore. Then who sent it? "I don't know." "Why would someone do this?" Jimin's eyes remained fixed on the road. "Because they want us separated." Answer sounded terrifyingly simple. Rainwater streamed across the glass. Traffic lights reflected in crimson streaks. Jungkook suddenly remembered every anonymous message, every carefully selected piece of information, every suggestion of betrayal, not proof, suggestions enough to create suspicion, enough to make him doubt. A realization slowly formed. Someone wasn't merely exposing secrets, someone was manipulating them, deliberately, patiently, methodically, as if every message had been designed to push them apart one step at a time. Jungkook swallowed. Who would do that? For the first time Jimin answered immediately. Know exactly who would. Car entered a tunnel. Darkness surrounded them. Only the dashboard lights illuminated Jimin's face. His expression looked haunted, like someone confronting a nightmare that had finally returned. "There was a man," Jimin said quietly. "Years ago. man who blamed me for destroying his life. Jungkook listened carefully. The city noise faded, only Jimin's voice remained. He promised one thing before he disappeared. What? Jimin's reflection stared back from the windshield, cold, distant, unsettling. He said that one day he would take away everything I cared about. Tunnel seemed endless, the darkness pressed against the windows. Jungkook felt unease settle deep inside his chest. Then Jimin spoke a name Jungkook had never heard before, and the instant he did, Jimin's phone, which had been switched off, suddenly lit up by itself on the dashboard. The screen glowed in the darkness. One new message appeared. Neither of them had touched the phone, neither understood how it had turned on. Yet there it was, a single sentence waiting for them. You should never have said my name. Jimin's face went pale, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Jungkook realized that whoever was behind it might be much closer than they ever imagined.
For several seconds, neither Jungkook nor Jimin spoke. The message glowed on the dashboard like a warning carved into darkness. You should never have said my name. Tunnel seemed colder, longer, more suffocating. Jungkook looked at Jimin. What is happening? Jimin's knuckles turned white around the steering wheel. I don't know. It was the first answer that sounded completely honest. The phone suddenly went black again, as if nothing had happened. The tunnel finally ended. Grey daylight flooded through the windshield. The feeling of being watched remained. Jimin immediately changed direction and drove toward the outskirts of the city. The skyscrapers gradually disappeared behind them. Roads became quieter, buildings became older. Jungkook noticed something unusual. Where are we going? A place nobody knows about. Jungkook frowned. Nobody. Jimin nodded. Almost nobody. Answer offered little comfort. An hour later they arrived at an old house hidden among tall pine trees. The property stood isolated from the surrounding area. Rainwater dripped from the roof. The wooden walls carried the scars of time. The place looked forgotten. Like a memory abandoned years ago, Jungkook stepped out of the car. The cold air hit his face immediately. The scent of wet earth filled the atmosphere. Everything felt strangely quiet, too quiet. No traffic, no voices, no signs of life, only wind moving through the trees. Jimin unlocked the front door. The hinges groaned softly. Dust floated through beams of pale light. This was my grandfather's house, Jimin explained. I used to come here when I wanted to disappear from the world. Jungkook looked around. Old photographs covered the walls, bookshelves stretched across one corner. A fireplace stood opposite a large window overlooking the forest. For a moment the house felt peaceful, a temporary refuge, yet the tension between them remained. Jimin disappeared into another room. Several minutes later he returned carrying a small metal box. His expression had changed. The hesitation was gone. In its place stood determination. Jungkook immediately understood. Jimin had finally decided to tell the truth. The entire truth. Jimin placed the box on the table. His fingers lingered on the lid as though opening it would awaken painful memories. Then he slowly unlocked it. Inside lay photographs, documents, newspaper clippings, and a worn leather notebook. Jungkook stared. What is all this? My mistake. Answer was quiet, heavy, filled with regret. Jimin sat down. The rain continued tapping against the windows. The sound became a backdrop to his confession. 5 years ago, he began, I trusted the wrong person. Jungkook listened carefully. The room seemed to shrink around them. There was a man named Kang Min-yu. Name carried weight, pain, fear, guilt. He was brilliant. Jimin picked up one of the photographs. In it, a younger Jimin stood beside a smiling man. At first glance, the man looked ordinary, friendly, professional, yet something about his eyes felt unsettling. He became my friend, Jimin swallowed. I believed him. The next photograph showed several people together, a team, a project, a partnership. Then came another photograph and another. Each one revealed fragments of a story until everything changed. The final picture showed police vehicles, ambulances, chaos. Jungkook's stomach tightened. What happened? Jimin looked down. His voice became barely above a whisper. I discovered he was using innocent people. Silence deepened. He manipulated lives. Stole information. Destroyed families. Jungkook felt chills spread across his skin, and when I exposed him, Jimin paused. His eyes darkened with memory. Everything collapsed. Rain intensified outside. The house creaked softly. Kang Min-yu lost everything. Jimin stared at the photograph. He blamed me. Jungkook suddenly understood the threat, the messages, the fear, the promise of revenge, all of it connected. He go to prison? Jimin nodded. For a while. Answer wasn't reassuring. Because for a while meant he was free now. Jungkook felt the realization settle heavily in his chest. The man had returned and he had come prepared. Then the person behind all this. I believe it's him. Jimin's voice sounded certain, too certain, almost as if he had feared this day for years. A sudden noise interrupted them, a loud crack from outside. Both men froze. Another crack followed, closer, the sound of a branch snapping. Someone was walking through the forest. Jimin immediately stood. His expression sharpened. He moved toward the window, carefully, slowly. Jungkook followed. Beyond the rain-covered glass stretched endless trees, dark shadows, moving branches, nothing else. Then Jungkook saw it, a figure standing between the trees, watching the house. The distance concealed details, but there was no doubt someone was there, watching, waiting. The figure remained motionless. Rain poured over the black coat. Neither Jungkook nor Jimin moved. Then suddenly the stranger lifted one hand, not a wave, not a greeting. Gesture pointing directly toward the house, toward them. Jungkook's pulse thundered. The figure slowly turned and disappeared deeper into the forest, gone as if swallowed by darkness. For several seconds neither spoke. Then Jimin rushed toward the front door. Stay here. Jungkook grabbed his arm. No. Answer came instantly, firmly. We do this together. Jimin looked at him. For the first time in days, the distance between them seemed to weaken, not completely, but enough for trust to begin returning. Little slowly, carefully, they stepped outside. Cold rain soaked their clothes immediately. The forest stretched before them, silent, mysterious, dangerous. The footprints remained visible in the mud, fresh, leading deeper among the trees. Jimin and Jungkook exchanged one look, then followed. The wind howled through the branches overhead. The path grew darker, the forest thicker. Every sound felt amplified, every shadow seemed alive. Then Jungkook noticed something hanging from a tree ahead, a small black envelope tied to a branch. Waiting as though someone knew they would come, Jimin approached carefully, removed it, opened it. Inside was a single photograph. The moment he saw it, the color vanished from his face. Jungkook grabbed the photograph and froze. The image showed them not yesterday, not last week, but right now, standing inside the old house only minutes earlier. Someone had been watching them from nearby, someone close enough to photograph them through the window. Beneath the photograph, a handwritten message appeared in dark ink. I told you I would take away everything you love. Rain seemed heavier after they read the note. Jungkook stared at the photograph. His hands slowly tightened around the edges. The picture had been taken only minutes earlier. That meant one thing. Whoever was stalking them wasn't watching from afar. He was close. Very close. The forest suddenly felt alive. Every shadow between the trees appeared threatening. Every movement of leaves sounded deliberate. Jimin folded the photograph and slipped it into his pocket. We're going back. His voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm people used when they were trying not to panic. They returned to the house quickly. The old wooden door slammed shut behind them. For a moment both simply listened. Nothing, no footsteps, no voices, only rain striking the roof. Jungkook moved toward the window again. The forest stood motionless beyond the glass, yet the feeling remained. Someone was there, watching, waiting, studying them. As if they were pieces on a board, Jimin began examining the documents from the metal box. His movements became increasingly urgent. He flipped through papers, opened folders, checked dates, searching for something, or perhaps hoping something wasn't there. What are you looking for? Jungkook asked. A mistake. Jungkook frowned. What does that mean? Jimin exhaled slowly. When Kang Min-yu disappeared, I believed everything was finished. His eyes remained fixed on the papers. But if he's behind this, then there's something I missed. The room fell silent again. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked steadily. Each second sounded louder than the last. Then Jimin suddenly stopped. His hand froze over one document. A look of realization crossed his face, followed immediately by dread. Jungkook noticed. What is it? Jimin didn't answer right away. Instead, he handed over a yellowed newspaper clipping. The headline was simple, but the moment Jungkook read it, his stomach dropped. Local investigator dies in mysterious accident. Beneath the headline was a photograph. A middle-aged man, serious eyes, kind smile. Jungkook looked back at Jimin. Who is he? Jimin swallowed. Person who helped me expose Kang Min-yu. Atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Something important had surfaced, something dangerous. What happened to him? Jimin stared at the photograph. He died 3 days before he was supposed to testify. The words hung heavily between them. Jungkook looked closer at the article. The official report described it as an accident, but even without evidence he could hear the doubt in Jimin's voice. You think he was murdered? I know he was. Certainty sent a chill through Jungkook. Jimin leaned back in his chair for a moment. Exhaustion showed clearly on his face. Years of guilt, years of fear, years of unanswered questions. I should have seen it sooner. Sooner. Kang Min-yu never wanted revenge immediately. Jimin's voice became quieter. He liked patience. Rain outside softened. The house creaked gently. Jungkook listened carefully. He once told me something. Jimin's gaze drifted toward the window. He said that destroying a person quickly is easy. A pause, but destroying them slowly is unforgettable. Neither spoke after that. The meaning was obvious. The anonymous messages, the videos, the photographs, the manipulation. It wasn't random. It was psychological, designed to create distrust, designed to isolate. Designed to make Jungkook and Jimin destroy their own relationship, without realizing someone else was pulling the strings. A sudden sound interrupted the silence. A beep, sharp, electronic. Both men froze. The sound came from somewhere inside the house. Jimin stood immediately. Did you hear that? Jungkook nodded, another beep followed, then another. The sound seemed to come from upstairs. Slowly, carefully, they climbed the staircase. The old wood groaned beneath their feet. The air felt colder on the second floor. Dust covered most of the furniture. Unused rooms lined the hallway. The beeping continued. Rhythmic, persistent, room after room revealed nothing, until they reached the final door. The sound came from inside. Jimin reached for the handle, opened it. The room was empty, almost. A small device sat on the floor in the center of the room. Neither recognized it immediately. A black box, no larger than a book. Its red light blinked steadily. Beep, beep, beep. Jungkook's pulse accelerated. How did that get here? Jimin didn't answer because he didn't know. The house had been empty for years. No one should have been inside, yet someone had entered recently. The realization was terrifying. Jimin approached cautiously. A folded piece of paper lay beneath the device. He picked it up, opened it, read it, then closed his eyes. What does it say? Jungkook asked. Jimin handed him the note. The handwriting matched the message from the forest. Jungkook read the words slowly. If you want the truth, come alone. Below the sentence was an address, and beneath that, a date, tonight at midnight. Jungkook looked up. It's a trap. Probably. Then we're not going. Jimin remained silent. That silence worried Jungkook more than any answer because it suggested he was considering it. The clock downstairs chimed softly. The sound echoed through the house. Jimin walked toward the window. The forest stretched endlessly outside, dark and wet beneath the fading daylight. Finally he spoke. If this really is Kang Minyu. His voice was low, careful. Then this might be the only chance to end it. Jungkook felt frustration rise immediately, or it's exactly what he wants. Jimin turned toward him. For the first time in days, there was no hesitation in his eyes, no secrets, only determination. I spent years waiting for him to come back. Room seemed smaller, the air heavier. And now that he's here, I can't keep running. Outside, the storm clouds slowly drifted across the evening sky. Darkness was approaching. Midnight was coming. And somewhere beyond the forest, beyond the city lights, beyond the fear and deception, a man was waiting. A man who seemed to know their every move. A man who had already spent years preparing for this moment. And neither Jungkook nor Jimin realized that before the night was over, they would uncover a truth far more shocking than revenge itself. A truth that connected them to Kang Minyu in a way neither had ever imagined.
Night descended slowly over the forest. The old house stood surrounded by darkness, its windows glowing faintly against the endless sea of black trees. Inside, neither Jungkook nor Jimin had spoken for nearly an hour. The address written on the note remained on the table between them. Midnight was getting closer. Tick, tick, tick. The grandfather clock continued its relentless march toward the appointed time. Jungkook sat near the fireplace, staring at the flames. His thoughts felt tangled. Over the past few days, everything he believed had been challenged. Trust, friendship, loyalty, even reality itself. Every answer seemed to create more questions. And somewhere behind all of it stood Kang Minyu, or at least the shadow of him. Jimin stood near the window watching the darkness outside, thinking, remembering. The expression on his face revealed more than words ever could: fear, regret, determination, three emotions fighting for control. Finally, Jungkook broke the silence. What if this isn't about revenge? Jimin turned. What do you mean? Jungkook looked at the note. Messages, the photographs, videos. He paused. If Kang Minyu wanted to hurt us, he had opportunities. Jimin listened carefully. He could have attacked directly, could have disappeared again, could have done 100 different things. Jungkook leaned forward, but instead he keeps leading us somewhere. Room became quiet. Jimin's eyes narrowed slightly because he had been thinking the same thing. For the first time, a new possibility emerged. Perhaps they weren't being hunted. Perhaps they were being guided. The idea felt absurd, yet nothing about the situation made sense anymore. A sudden realization crossed Jimin's face. He rushed toward the metal box, pulled out the old notebook, and began turning pages rapidly. Jungkook watched. What is it? Jimin didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned handwritten notes from years ago, names, dates, addresses, fragments of investigations long finished. Or supposedly finished. Then he stopped, his breathing slowed. Jungkook immediately noticed. What did you find? Jimin stared at a particular page, his face pale, his voice barely above a whisper. This address. Jungkook looked at the note on the table. One we're supposed to visit? Jimin nodded, his eyes remained fixed on the notebook. Seen it before. The word sent a chill through the room. Where? Jimin slowly raised his head. In my old investigation. Jungkook felt his stomach tight. The realization arrived like distant thunder. The meeting location wasn't random. It never had been. Someone wanted them to find it. Someone who knew Jimin would recognize it eventually. The clock struck 11. 1 hour remained. The tension inside the house became almost unbearable. At 11:30 they left. Rain had finally stopped. The forest glistened beneath moonlight. Mist drifted between the trees. The world looked strangely beautiful and strangely dangerous. Jimin drove in silence. The road stretched endlessly ahead. Streetlights appeared only occasionally. Most of the journey unfolded beneath darkness. Jungkook watched the passing landscape through the window. His reflection stared back at him, tired, uncertain, yet determined. Whatever happened tonight, he needed answers. They both did. 40 minutes later, the GPS led them to the edge of an abandoned industrial district. Old warehouses lined empty streets. Broken fences rattled softly in the wind. Rust-covered metal structures. The entire area looked forgotten, frozen in time. Jimin parked several blocks away. Neither wanted to announce their arrival. The address pointed toward the largest warehouse at the end of the road. Its enormous silhouette loomed against the night sky, dark, silent, waiting. Jungkook and Jimin approached carefully. Their footsteps echoed faintly on cracked pavement. The air smelled of rust and damp concrete. Every shadow seemed capable of hiding someone or something. The warehouse doors stood partially open, a narrow gap. Just enough for a person to enter. Jimin exchanged a glance with Jungkook, then pushed the door wider. The metal groaned loudly. The sound echoed through the enormous structure inside. Darkness swallowed almost everything. Moonlight filtered through broken windows high above. Dust drifted through pale beams of light. Rows of abandoned machinery stood like silent monuments. The atmosphere felt unreal, almost dreamlike. Then a voice emerged from the darkness, calm, measured, unexpectedly familiar. I was wondering how long it would take. Both men froze. The voice wasn't coming from ahead, it came from above. They looked upward. A figure stood on a metal walkway overlooking the warehouse floor, hidden mostly in shadow, watching them. Waiting for several seconds, nobody moved. Then the figure stepped forward. Moonlight touched his face. Jungkook felt his breath stop. Beside him, Jimin went completely still. The shock on his face was unmistakable, because the man standing there wasn't Kang Min-yu. Wasn't the mysterious stranger from the photographs. It wasn't anyone either of them expected. It was the investigator from the newspaper clipping. The man who had supposedly died 5 years ago, the same man whose funeral Jimin had attended. The same man whose death had changed everything, yet here he was, alive, looking exactly as he had in the photograph. A faint smile appeared on the man's face. Suppose, he said quietly, you both have a lot of questions. Jimin stared in disbelief. That's impossible. Man sighed. Yes, his eyes reflected sadness. And unfortunately, impossible is where this story truly begins. The first time since this nightmare started, Jungkook realized they had been looking in the wrong direction the entire time, because Kang Min-yu might not be the mastermind, he might not even be the real enemy, and whatever truth awaited them inside the warehouse was far bigger than either of them had imagined. The warehouse fell silent. Only the distant sound of wind slipping through broken windows could be heard. Jungkook's heart pounded against his ribs. Jimin stood motionless, staring at the man he had believed was dead for 5 years. Nothing made sense anymore. The investigator slowly descended the metal staircase. Each step echoed through the vast building. When he finally reached the warehouse floor, moonlight revealed the deep lines of exhaustion on his face. He looked older than in the newspaper photograph, older and burdened. My name is Han Seojun, he said quietly, and I owe both of you the truth. Jimin's voice was tight. I attended your funeral. Han nodded. I know, then explain. A sad smile appeared on Han's face. Accident was staged. Answer hung heavily in the air. Years ago, during the investigation into Kang Min-yu's activities, Han had uncovered something far larger than a single criminal operation. Kang Min-yu had not been working alone. There had been powerful people behind him, people with money, influence, and connections that reached far beyond what anyone imagined. When Han discovered their identities, he became a target. The only way to survive was to disappear, so his death had been fabricated. Only a handful of people knew the truth. Jimin had never been one of them. Han looked at him with regret. I'm sorry. Jimin lowered his gaze. Years of guilt suddenly shifted inside him. For years he had blamed himself for Han's death. For years he had carried that burden, and now he discovered it had never been his fault. Han turned toward Jungkook. As for you, you were never the target. Jungkook frowned. What do you mean? Han reached into his coat and pulled out a folder. Inside were photographs, documents, reports, years of records. Kang Min-yu never wanted revenge. Jimin stared. What? Han nodded. The messages were real. The surveillance was real. Revenge was never the objective. Truth finally emerged. Years earlier, Kang Min-yu had discovered that the powerful group behind the criminal network intended to erase everyone connected to the original investigation. Jimin, Han, several witnesses. Anyone who knew too much. When Kang Min-yu realized he was also disposable, he turned against them. No one believed him, no one trusted him, especially Jimin. So after disappearing, Kang Min-yu spent years gathering evidence, building a case, preparing for a final confrontation. The anonymous messages had not been sent to destroy Jungkook and Jimin. They had been sent to force them to uncover the truth, poorly, painfully, but necessarily. Jungkook felt stunned. Every assumption had been wrong. Every conclusion incomplete. Han handed them a flash drive. Everything is here. Evidence, the names, the proof, years of hidden corruption, years of secrets. Jimin looked down at the flash drive resting in his palm. So where is Kang Min-yu now? For the first time, sadness appeared in Han's eyes. A long silence followed, then he answered. He didn't survive. The warehouse seemed colder. He died 6 months ago. Jungkook's breath caught. Han continued quietly. He spent his final years collecting enough evidence to expose them. Knew nobody would believe him. He hoped someone would eventually find the truth. Jimin lowered his head. A complicated ache filled his chest. He had spent years fearing Kang Min-yu, hating him, blaming him, yet in the end the man had been trying to stop something far worse, not because he was innocent, not because he was good, but because he finally understood the damage he had helped create. The rest happened quickly. Within weeks the evidence reached the authorities, investigations reopened. Arrests followed, names that had remained hidden for years finally surfaced, the network collapsed, the people responsible faced justice. And for the first time in a long time, the shadows surrounding the past began to disappear. Months later, spring arrived. The storms were gone, the city looked different beneath clear skies. Jungkook stood beside the river one quiet afternoon. Cherry blossoms drifted through the air. Soft pink petals danced across the water. Footsteps approached behind him. He didn't need to turn around, he already knew who it was. Jimin stopped beside him, neither spoke immediately, they simply watched the river flow peacefully, steadily like time itself. So, Jungkook finally said, "No more secrets." Jimin laughed softly, "No more secrets." The first time in months the answer felt completely true, the pain they had endured hadn't disappeared, the fear hadn't been forgot, some scars would always remain. But trust had survived, perhaps stronger than before, because trust built during easy times was simple. Trust rebuilt after doubt, fear, and betrayal was something far rarer. A gentle breeze carried cherry blossoms between them. Jimin smiled, Jungkook smiled back. The darkness that had once threatened to separate them was finally gone, not because someone saved them, not because the world suddenly became fair, but because they chose to face the truth together. And in the end, that choice proved stronger than every lie designed to tear them apart. As the sun slowly descended toward the horizon, golden light spread across the river. The city glowed. The future remained uncertain. Life always would be. Yet for the first time since the first anonymous message arrived, neither felt afraid of what came next. They stood side by side beneath the fading sunlight, watching the water move endlessly forward. And this time nothing stood between them. The end.